it's been like this for several weeks now. So thank you everyone for bearing with us. We are here tonight with Marguerite Rigoglioso. She's one of the most important feminine icons in regards to feminine power, virgin birth, immaculate conception. She has written 3 books on this topic. And as we speak, she has just launched the last one of them, The Mystery Tradition of Immaculate Conception, about Mary and the lineage of virgin births. So I'm delighted to approach this topic with Margaret and see what marvelous information we can weave together tonight. So thank you, Marguerite, for being here, and thank you for your wisdom and for choosing this topic to bring this knowledge into the world. Thank you so much.
Thank you. It's really wonderful to be here with you, Cristiana. Appreciate this.
Tell us, please, how did you start to look into this topic? I mean, it's not something that people very often approach, you know. It's it's not like somebody wakes up and thinks, so let's talk a little bit about how to bring a child into the world in a very high state of consciousness. How did you get into this type of topic?
Well, I got into it accidentally through my keen interest in exploring everything that was ever said about priestesses in ancient Greece. I thought that my dissertation at the California Institute of Integral Studies was going to be about, was going to be a cataloging of everything that was ever said or written about priestesses in the ancient Greek legends, histories, myths, and so forth. I was going to catalog it all. And prior to doing that, I was working on my master's thesis, and I was studying Demeter and Persephone in Sicily. This was a very big project that I did. And I was reading the work of one scholar named Anna Maria Corradini, and she has a book called Meteres, or Mothers. And she was writing about Demeter and Persephone. And she said that she was describing it in such a way that she basically said that Demeter's birth of Persephone was parthenogenetic. Basically, Zeus had nothing to do with it originally in the original story, that this was Persephone coming out of Demeter in this matriarchal way. And just with everything she was saying about this, I just had this sudden downpour of intuition. Oh my gosh, this is something real that women were actually doing. Okay. And simultaneously, and I can't remember if it was just before or after this, I was reading Drunvalo Melchizedek's 2-volume book, The Ancient Secret of the Flower of Life.
Yeah.
Okay. And he has a small section in one of them, I'm not sure if it's part 1 or 2, where Thoth tells him that virgin birth was real, that Mother Mary did accomplish it. And he says, I don't really know what to make of this. I don't really know what else to say about it. But those 2 things, my own intuition and what he said, stuck with me. So that when I started looking at all of these accounts of ancient priestesses in Greece, all of a sudden I started seeing there were so many references to divine kinds of conception, unusual kinds of conception stories, virgins who got pregnant, virgins who were made pregnant by gods, and there seemed to be some kind of interdimensional activity going on, all of this.
Contact, yeah.
And I began to compile a mass of evidence about this topic from not only Greek myth, but Greek legend, which is, I think, closer to history, and then Greek history itself, Greek historical and medical documents. So before you knew it, I was able to flesh out this hypothesis with some actual research. And from there, I created a dissertation proposal, got my committee together at the California Institute of Integral Studies, and then I wrote my dissertation, and it became my first 2 books, The Cult of Divine Birth in Ancient Greece, and the second one is Virgin Mother Goddesses of Antiquity. And at that time, I already had received a lot of downpours about Mother Mary. And I knew to look in one of her suppressed gospels, the infancy gospel of James, which is really her infancy, the description of her infancy. And so I started teaching about that, but not writing about her yet. My dissertation was too long already. I couldn't fit anything about Mother Mary. So fast forward to, 10 and 12 years later, where I finally was able to write all of that information down. And that's the latest book, The Mystery Tradition of Miraculous Conception. So that's a little bit about the trajectory, how I got started and where it led me.
That's fantastic. I mean, how these synchronicities tend to lead us to one of the most important, or if not the most important task of our lives. I love talking about it, especially because I was in Greece, actually, when I first read in depth about this topic. I've been studying this for 10 years. I've been for 10 years, more than 10 years, learning and practicing something called pranic nourishment, the ability to be nourished by light, chi, or prana. And all over the world, we have organized or participated in events with people that are nourished by light, chi, or prana without the necessity of taking physical food for more than 5, 10, 20 years. So that's been my experience. And then having organized all these events with them, including the summit, the Pranic Consciousness Summit, I've learned that actually matter is all molecules and atoms, and that you can make anything out of it through instant manifestation. And so one of my favorite areas of interest that I haven't got so deep into until this year has been Immaculate Conception. So I remember 10 years ago or more that I read an article written by our common friend Dan Poitras, who was describing his meeting with a breatharian woman that eventually has given birth to a child without the aid of a man and without taking physical food. And that struck me as truth, because I feel and I felt always that this is possible. And in advanced civilizations that I think we all come from, there's no need to physically interact with another person to give birth to a child. So for me, that's very familiar. And then this year, I received a book for my birthday that was referring to Immaculate Conception, among other subjects. It's called Anna, the Grandmother of Jesus. Yes, and I've read it in Greece. That's how things work. So I've read it in Greece, in one of the most beautiful places in Greece, near the Temple of the Great Gods. And as I was reading it, someone has written to me to ask me about this topic that I've never spoken of. She has written, look, I know that you're into breatharianism and manifesting with light and being nourished by light. So I want to know what you think about Immaculate Conception. And all I could find so far is the works of Marguerite Rigoglioso and Dan Poitras. So I said, okay, let's interview both of you and let's see how we can go further on this topic, because it's so fascinating.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Well, it's only recently, with the writing of the book, which I completed, I would say, I completed it toward the end of 2019, the very beginning of 2020. And as I was writing, I realized that, because I was trying to look at the pieces of how a woman could conceive immaculately, and I realized the diet was a big part of it. Now, I had already gotten wind of this. There's a book called The Mysteries of Human Reproduction by Raymond Bernard. And I believe it's in a footnote in that book. It was like a pamphlet that was stapled together that I got. He talks about this woman in South America, this shaman, who basically said that, if I'm not mistaken, these women had to have a particular type of diet in order to conceive in that way. And So that was already in my mind. And then when I really looked again at the story of Lori, this woman who's Den uses her, he calls her Lori, that's her,
Yes.
her pseudonym, that she was working with breatharianism. And then when I looked, and you'll see it in my book, The Mystery Tradition of Miraculous Conception, when I looked at the little wisps of description that they give to Mary's time in the temple, saying that she was fed on the food of angels.
Yes.
I started understanding, and also that her prior, when she was an infant, up until age 3 years old, when she was in her mother's bedroom sanctuary that was created for her, because Mary was already divinely born of her mother, Anne, you see.
Yes, yes, absolutely.
Nothing impure passed through her lips. And it really sounded like, I started putting it together, and I realized that they were also probably from a branch of the Essenes, these Anne and Joachim, known as the Therapeutae.
Yes.
And it is documented by Philo that these Therapeutae ate only bread, and sometimes they would have hyssop oil or flavoring in it or something like that.
Olive oil.
Okay, right. So they had a very reduced diet, and I realized, oh gosh, there was a special diet involved in this, because partly you wanted to do away with the menstrual cycle.
Absolutely.
And in order to do away with the menstrual cycle, it's not about anorexia. It's about at a certain point, when you aren't eating certain types of things, or you aren't eating very much, your body no longer needs to purify.
Yes.
In the way it does. Menstruation is about monthly purification. If you're not taking in anything that is requiring you to purify, you won't menstruate. So I started realizing that a very sparse kind of diet that was probably mostly pranic in nature, the cessation of the menstrual flow, and I think it was Raymond Bernard and another man named Delbert Blair, this African-American man who has some audios and videos on this, that the women wore loose clothing. So these three things allowed them to breathe, like literally, literally and figuratively, it allowed their womb to breathe. And that was like an important prerequisite for parthenogenesis, or divine conception without male sperm, right? And it's so interesting how, as we are talking, we recently had a story from California that a condor, and the bird, a condor, one or two from the female, from the mother. So I think that is just so fascinating. We're hearing that the condor, which is the great symbol of the southern hemisphere, there's North America, South America. Central and South America are represented by the condor, and North America is represented by the eagle. And there was a prophecy that the condor and the eagle would come together and cooperate, and this would bring together the indigenous wisdom of the South with the knowledge of the North. And so I find it fascinating how it's a condor now that is parthenogenetically given birth, because usually these creatures are snakes, fish, reptiles of some kind. But now we have a bird that has done it, and this type of bird. So it feels like all of this is significant together in this timing to bring our attention to divine birth, to bring our attention to indigenous knowledge, and everything that we're talking about. What are some of the conditions of divine birth? Well, a sparse diet, living on prana, living on consciousness, and virginity, because virginity was a necessary component for parthenogenesis in a sacred holy way, the woman could not have the influence of a male come into her body. She could not have his energy, and she could not have his karma, and she could not have his DNA coming into her body if she wanted to have the highest level divine birth possible, which is what Mother Mary did. So virginity was a very, very important part of the technological program that allowed women to conceive divinely, those who were working at very high levels.
That's very interesting. And we know that you're also the director of the Seven Sister Mystery School. So you're going to tell us more about that and what it teaches. But as I was listening to you, I was remembering, because I feel that there's people in the audience that need to know something. I telepathically perceive this question mark from some of the audience. We are not in any way, shape, or form encouraging feminism or rejecting men from our lives.
Yes.
We're also in any way, shape, or form advising people to stop eating. So that's
yes.
a very high level way of living that requires lots of practice and lots of in-depth exercise that we don't recommend to anyone without the proper guidance, the proper teachers, and the proper lifestyle. And we teach more about it, in our programs, like the pranic process online that's starting tomorrow, or other programs. Don't try this at home, on your own. You might die if you stop eating and don't train yourself. And don't reject your men to be, in a higher consciousness or to be holier, because, that's not the way to do it. We want to also refer to the fact that, for example, the grandmother of Jesus has given birth to Mary in Immaculate Conception, in divine conception, but with the presence and participation of her husband. The way they did it was that her husband was also a very, very, very high, advanced, Essene, high consciousness man. And they both, as some books and other texts refer to, they both were risen into light. It means in the astral plane, in the seventh heaven, however you want to call it, to be upgraded as consciousness and as physical bodies, to be able to conceive together and bring in such powerful spirit as Mary has been, the representative of the divine feminine on earth. So in that case, and in many other cases that are possible still on the planet, Immaculate Conception can be possible with the presence with a very high consciousness man. It doesn't exclude them. But in the case of the Christed one, the virgin birth has been necessary because he had to have a very advanced DNA code, a very specific code of DNA that was not of the human origin that was present on the planet before. So that's why, as Margaret said, there was no presence of male participation or male the karma of a human male involved in it, because he had to bring the new level, the next level of consciousness for the planet and for the whole humanity. So there are two, from my understanding and view and remembering, because I'm remembering other dimensions and lifetimes, it is possible to do it both ways, but the highest of the highest is the Immaculate Virgin Birth. So what are your references on this?
Yes. Everything you're saying is so important, Cristiana. I mean, especially the idea that we are not saying that we want to have birth and do away with men. Absolutely not.
We love them.
The purpose of divine birth was to bring in a high holy avatar, as you're alluding. It was to bring in a being who had an extremely high level of consciousness, maybe even what we would call superpowers or supernatural powers, in order to help humanity lift itself up to that level. Okay, that would be a Jesus, and there are many others in the Greco-Roman world and beyond. The peacemaker in North America in the Haudenosaunee tradition is said to have been born in this way, and he had miraculous abilities. that brought the people together from warring into becoming peaceful again, for example. So, and yes, there has been participation of males in various versions of this, depending on the abilities and the intentions of all the people involved. So what I see is that the very highest level of this practice, to bring the highest level avatar in, is parthenogenesis, virgin birth, without any hint of male energy at all. That is what Mother Mary accomplished. She had no male helping her, even energetically. And her mother, however, I believe, had help energetically from her partner, Joachim. It was not conjugal help. It was not physical sperm. He was out in the desert doing a vision quest, and she was in the garden doing this conception ritual, but he was in prayer. And I believe what Claire Hartsong is saying is this was true. These men were energetically assisting with the process. So that's one way that they could participate. There was another form of divine birth where the woman was engaging with in a sexual union with a disembodied spirit who was not human.
Yes.
A god, so-called, or whatever. And then there was another method where the woman would engage with a god with a human male intermediary. And that was Tantra. And that was high-level sacred hieros gamos, or sacred marriage magic that was done in ancient Egypt, for example, to bring in the pharaohs at a certain point, okay? All of these different methods have their pure aspects and their misused aspects. All aspects of this eventually got misused on planet Earth by negative forces, and then the entire practice got veiled and hidden from view, so that people would consider it only to be a biological impossibility. Okay, but yes, so there are those various dimensions and ways in which it can be accomplished. There was another stage that Isis accomplished, and Rudolf Steiner says that Isis was the incarnation of Mary prior to her lifetime as Mother Mary, and I believe that is true. So she was already learning all these different types of techniques, but as Isis, what she learned was how to co-create parthenogenetically, but with the sacred phallus, the sacred dildo, that golden phallus of Osiris, and he was already on the other side. So that was a kind of a sex magic that they were working, where he was disembodied already, but he had a human life, and she was working with his phallus, an artificial phallus of gold that she had created to conceive Horus. But by the time this female incarnates as Mother Mary, all of those technologies go by the wayside. They're not needed. She now knows how to become one in and of herself and experience that absolute divine conception without the way the goddess conceives, without any male god, without any male interdimensional being, without any human male helping her on any level. She did it. She was sovereign in her virgin birth. And it's just completely fascinating that all of these stages and steps are possible, and that Mother Mary is the model for us of the apex of this kind of conception. But giving birth to a divine child can also happen through a regular couple doing certain other practices that I've learned about, that Sri Kaleshwar teaches in the Holy Womb Chakra teachings, that it's a two-step process with two mantras, one that the couple engages in during union, and one that the mother engages in afterward when she's pregnant with the child. And that is said to bring in a kind of a divine child as well. So there are grades and gradations of what we mean by a divine child, right? All from an elevated, really advanced human all the way to a superhuman, like a Jesus. And so it's important for all of us, whether we're planning on doing divine birth or not, to understand these other steps that we could use, even if we are having, union with a male, in order to bring a higher level ancestor in, a higher level being. And this level of consciousness is what's needed on the planet now, because women are allowing too many troubled souls, troubled ancestors and so forth into their wombs, not to mention many of the abductions that have been taking place and so forth, of their eggs and reproductive material. So all in all, it would benefit planet Earth if women became more conscious about conception, whether they want to achieve a divine avatar like Jesus, or whether they want to achieve a divine child in their regular marriage with a man.
That's very important what you just said now. And I've always spoken to couples during our sessions, you know, because I also do one-on-one therapy or couple therapy, or during our conferences where we've spoken about Tantra, divine union, and pranic lifestyle. I've always spoken to couples, you know, referring to the fact that there must be a preparation to bring on a soul, a child.
Yes.
There must be a time of purification. There must be a time of deeper intimacy and communion for like several years, I would suggest. And if we think of advanced civilizations, and, you know, I'm not shy to say that I'm connected and part of various advanced civilizations, you don't just bring a soul into the world, you know, you choose a partner. You build together a certain field for several years, or in other civilizations for several hundreds of years, because there we are almost immortal. Yes. And then we prepare in temples in a certain way, and we bring a certain energy in us in a certain way, and we also mind our diet, if necessary, in a certain way, that we bring the highest of energies in our physical bodies to transform ourselves to the level that it can manifest and bring forth a spirit that frequency matches a higher frequency of our bodies. And then you create that our being, that our baby, that is of a higher, you know, level of consciousness, even higher than the couple. Nowadays, we're seeing all these beautiful high consciousness babies being born. They come in anyway, regardless of what the parents are doing. You know, they just want to be here, so they just slide in whatever the karma is. But we want to, or would love to, have the couples practicing more conscious pregnancy, and that would bring, you know, the evolution of humanity naturally. So what is it that you suggest on that specific topic? Because not everybody wants to immaculate conceive. Okay, but if you choose to have a partner, what should a woman or a man do in that direction?
Well, you know, what Sri Kaleshwar says is you want to, when you are having sexual union, for 5 or 10 minutes, chant Vishvashakti Avaham, Vishvashakti Avaham, Vishvashakti Avaham, Vishvashakti Avaham together, you know, while you are having that sexual union. And then the female, once the conception happens, so every time you're making love, you do that until the conception happens. And then once the female conceives, she chants Om Kamakam Ramnam Cham, Om Kamakam Ramnam Cham, Om Kamakam Ramnam Cham, you know, 108 times a day, which is a full mala, and as much as she can while she's pregnant. These sacred syllables and sounds are probably what Mother Mary used, because Sri Kaleshwar, who is the Hindu saint now deceased on the other side, he had a samadhi, who gathered all of this information, indicates to us that Mother Mary was using these practices to conceive. And so the mantra, the sound, is part of this whole program of working with light, working with matter, working with intention, working with astrological timing, working with diet, working with breath. The sound is another kind of technology that is used in this entire program of conceiving a higher level child. And I think that, you know, there has been so much about conscious conception that's come to the fore in the last 20, 30 years. So we are adding a piece to it and reinforcing the idea that every conception should be a conscious conception.
That's what I mean. That's exactly
and the thing is, we cannot afford to have anyone not conceiving in a way that's conscious, because any kind of soul can slip through. And many of them are wounded soul fragments, wounded ancestors. They need to get their healing in another way and not be coming to the earth plane and acting it out and creating more karma. If what you were saying is absolutely right. I've developed this way of thinking over the years that yes, we need to evolve our planet. And because women are the gatekeepers, the inviters, the hosts, and the gardeners of the womb, and who comes into this planet and who doesn't, it's really up to us. So any time you can be in a sacred kind of ceremony for your conception, anytime you can do all of these kinds of preparations that you're talking about, that I'm talking about, educating yourself about what conscious conception is, the various tools and techniques, and then enjoying the conception process. That's the whole point of it. This is a child conceived in love, but with these other technologies helping, right? And so it would really be beneficial to the earth plane if all women could become more conscious. And then, of course, with that, men as well, participating and co-creating, receiving their own information, etc. Because just as women need to purify their wombs through this entire system that Sri Kaleshwar retrieved in ancient India, so men probably need to clear their second chakras, their phalluses, their sperm, etc. So that you have a purified sperm coming together with a purified egg in love, with light, with intention, with consciousness, and with prayer, asking those angels who govern this process, like Gabriel, okay, to truly assist in a high level child coming in for the greatest good of all. And like you're saying, it's fascinating. These children even slipping in, despite whether these people are conscious or not, they're like, we got to go in there now, people.
Yeah.
They are at a higher level. They are at a higher level than their parents. They're at a higher level than their parents, hands down. And you can pretty much tell these children right away.
Yeah.
There's one in my family, and it's like, whoa,
Yeah.
oh my gosh, this is like Buddha who's come back, right? Yeah. So, they're recognizable. They're old soul children. You can see it right away. So there is so much possibility happening right now, and the whole spectrum from kind of regular conscious conception, and then Tantra, high Tantra on one end to bring in a divine child that way of a very high order. And, like they were trying to do in Greece, in Egypt, but it was still a little degenerated. Yes. And then high virgin birth, like how Mother Mary did. So, and everything in between. So there are many, many options. So this topic is really relevant to everyone, to anyone wanting to conceive going forward, and for all of us to think about who have already conceived, or who are, in our later years, about what other things we're conceiving, because there's so many other things you can conceive through the womb besides children that we're conceiving every day of the week. Yes. All of our thought forms, all of our projects, you can give birth to dragons, you can give birth to all sorts of positive and negative things through your womb on a regular basis. So these are further iterations of how applicable this topic is to all of us.
Yes, and it's amazing, and it's so vast. I have like 10 questions coming to my mind as you speak, and 10 different topics that we could expand on. Your dear assistant was sending me question suggestion. I said, oh, there's no need. There's gonna be so much material just downloading as we speak. I know.
That's right.
So one of the things that came was what would be the methods of purification that you would recommend, at least one or two that people would do, not necessarily to immaculate conceive, but to consciously conceive in the highest way possible for each level of consciousness that is now available here to humanity.
Yes.
And of course, because our community is vastly pranic, so many people have gone through pranic processes, being on liquids for many years or so, you know, you can go higher with whatever you want to share.
Yes. So I think that the dietary purification is major. It's very big. I think that eventually for all of us to let go of animal products, or certainly animal meat, you know, at flesh, and moving more and more into vegetarianism, veganism, and then the levels that you're talking about, really working with liquids and things like that. And eventually prana, you know, the great masters who could just live on air, or prana, really. Air is not just the same thing as prana, but so that is one thing, the dietary purification, the purification of your body from any pharmaceuticals of any kind, you know, all of these medicines, so-called, and the focus on plant-based medicines only. I would say, you know, we would need to be outside of an EMF system, ideally, you know, so that's another whole thing as they amp up these vibrations with the EMFs and the 5G and whatnot. We're all,
yeah,
the Wi-Fi. So we're all kind of under this, but you can still supersede that through your energy, but you know, it doesn't help really to be in these environments. And then of course, what Sri Kaleshwar brought through, which is the Holy Womb Chakra mantras and yantras, that is a bona fide purification process for anyone of any gender identification. We've had men doing that. We've had transgender people and women, because everyone has the access to the Nada Bindu point, which is the floating point right under your navel, which brings you back to your mother and to the great goddess. So anyone can purify their womb point, all right? And for women, it's purifying the whole womb. There's a sequence of like 6 or 7 or more mantras that you do in sequence over 101 days. That is part of the Holy Womb Chakra teachings that I do teach. I did it myself. I'm certified to teach it. I have it on my website, sevensistersmysteryschool.com. The 7 is written out and it's under the online courses, the Holy Womb Chakra teaching. So you can take it. It's available on demand now. And that teaches you the whole entire system, all the steps you need to go through to purify your womb. And by that, we don't mean that the womb is intrinsically dirty or anything. No, it's like having your womb take a shower. That's it. It has accrued much in the way of debris, unwanted energies through sexual partners, unwanted touch, karmic issues,
traumas.
You know, traumas, impure food, you know, all that type of thing over the years. And so you want to go through this purification, and you can have dramatic things happen during and after this purification process. So you're clearing yourself energetically, you're clearing your whole womb body energetically. And then, you know, that's as much as I know right now. I mean, I think there are probably even more things that you know, that others know, that will all come together. There are things that people are going to be transmitting as oracles, receiving it directly from the Akashic records, right? So there's so much, right? There's so much that really needs to be reconstructed in this regard, but at least you and I and others are giving pieces that can already be very, very helpful right now.
That's so wonderful. Thank you so much. I mean, we want to touch base with the, you know, the people that aren't necessarily having the role to go through a very high state of consciousness process, but still have the role to bring in some beautiful children that could help humanity in a very high way. And I was just having, you know, because I've expanded on this topic on various levels. And one of the levels is, of course, the tantric practices. And you were referring to the Egyptian tantric practices where they were bringing in spirits to assist the conception. We want to refer, because some people, you know, in the audience, I'm kind of reading the field of the people listening. So they were like, oh, but it's some kind of spiritism and such. No, it's just when you invoke beings of light that are higher in consciousness than you are, that are basically assisting the process of your sexual sharing. They're assisting the process of your sexual act and the conception that might result from it. So that's what Margaret is referring to right now. So it's not some kind of spiritism. It's like some form of prayer or meditation or being in communion with an energy that's higher than yourself. For example, you could invite in a tantric practice, in a tantric act with your partner, you could pray and invite Jesus and Mary Magdalene to assist that and protect and support that act, so that it's being done in a higher way than just physical sexual sharing. And that creates, of course, a different energy in your intercourse, and it creates a different result if you're meant to conceive a child. So that's what we're referring to when we refer to higher Tantra and bringing in light beings, I would call them, to assist this process. Then you can go in resonance to such deep level that you actually embody, to the highest level possible, embody one of these beings. This has been my practice. I've been able to embody, when divine feminine in different forms. A male can also embody divine masculine in different forms, whichever type of energy is necessary for that process or for that act. And that's a higher, or one of the highest form of Tantra, where you're no longer a person or personality, but you can be actually a higher energy, or you can be completely one with the divine and bring in that energy. And that's quite immaculate, in conception.
Exactly. It's the other end of the spectrum of the virgin birth. It's a tantric immaculate birth, like you're saying, where you become the vehicles for these very high level beings. I mean, it's so intense, and it takes a lot of knowledge. You always want to be careful what you're embodying and so forth.
What you're connecting to, yeah.
That's right, because there was so much trickery that ended up happening, and I write about this in The Cult of Divine Birth in ancient Greece. There was so much trickery that would fall upon these women who would be in their high parthenogenetic rituals, and all of a sudden they would be bidden, they would be visited by an unbidden male god who was tricking them into union with them by even him shape-shifting into different things that she thought was, this happened to me, my incarnation as Danae. Zeus came to me as a shower of golden light. And that shower of golden light is the exact technology by which the priestess conceives.
Yes.
Parthenogenetically. He rode right in on that wave, and I was impregnated with Perseus. And Perseus went on to behead Medusa, who was another divine birth priestess. So, these things are like out of this world types of situations, but I knew that I received in a medicine ceremony early on in this research that I had come back to talk about divine birth to make up for the karma that I had broken my virgin vow. And I realized as the years went on, it was by being tricked by Zeus, so that he entered and penetrated me, and I didn't know what was happening, and my body mind system was used, and it created all of this havoc with everything that Perseus did on the planet and so forth. And he didn't even, the poor guy, he was just loved his mother, and he was trying to do what was right by her, but everything was so distorted because these reptilian Anunnaki energies got into the human genetic lines. Okay, and they got into the human genetic lines through the Pleiades and so forth. So it's we are cleaning up a whole bunch of karma and a whole bunch of DNA that got twisted in and grafted with other things that we didn't want. So now we're working to reverse these tendrils and these things that are in our DNA that we don't want anymore, that do not serve the human genome, that do not serve the human existence on this planet. And that's part of the conscious conception. It's the epigenetic alteration back to some original DNA templates.
Thank you so much for sharing this. I know this is very intimate and profound, and we're really grateful for you opening up to share this. This is fabulous. I mean, for women to know, and men, that if you're not tuning into the highest energy possible, you know, you might bring in, you know, you might make contact basically with forms of energy that are not really necessary for you. And you might kid yourself that you are channeling or embodying or being in contact with, you know, some of the highest, but you're actually not. And we have been in not recently, but a few years ago, in an interview with Mary Rodwell, who's studying a lot of children that are, and adults, that are having memories of having, you know, interdimensional or interplanetary contact. And they are reporting of these memories and, you know, being on ships and being relating with other, you know, with beings that are from different other planets. And as you were referring, there can be some that are nice and some that are not so nice. And so many of these children that have these memories are actually tested to have non-human DNA, which involves the fact that actually the mothers have been somehow, you know, inseminated, I would say, with DNA that hasn't been human, either through their husbands, who might have been, you know, of mixed DNA themselves, or through direct contact with beings that are of non-human DNA. And that's actually possible. It's scientifically demonstrated. There is DNA that has been tested that is non-human. There are skulls coming from Peru and Paracas that have been tested of having non-human DNA as well. So you don't even know what you are, actually, you that are listening. You might be human, but you might not, you know. So it's not far-fetched to say that conception that doesn't involve a male presence might not be necessarily of the divine. It might be in contact with beings that are not necessarily of Earth. And
that's right.
Yeah.
And the Greek legend is full of those stories, with those so-called Greek gods that were really Anunnaki reptilian hybrids inserting themselves as well into the women, as well as the Watchers. And I talk about this in the Cult of Divine Birth in Ancient Greece, where I talk about one of the ancient texts that describes how the Watchers, these interdimensional beings that were giants, would have like television onto human Earth. They would be able to see couples in the act of lovemaking. They would be intrigued and stimulated by this. And they had a technology where they could beam themselves into the mind of the woman so that she starts having energetic sex with this being. And the conception that results is from this being, not the husband. And then they knew that because the child that would eventually grow became the giants, the Nephilim.
Much larger than a natural human being. That's
much larger, the Nephilim. So you see, there are many dastardly technologies that these beings use, beaming in their thought forms into women. They also just plain out abduct women, you know, in the middle of the night, and whatever they do, use their material, have off-planet hybriding programs, and then on-planet hybriding programs. There have been many women who have had the children taken away from them after 3 months of pregnancy. Nobody knows where the fetus went, and everybody just tries to make up some rational idea of what could have happened. So there are many, many shenanigans that are going on right now with women. And this is why we also need to be gatekeepers and get conscious to when we're being hijacked in our astral dream state, or whatever other states unconscious that we go into. And we're taken, you know, our energy bodies are taken and used for these on and off planet hybriding projects, you know, and it goes on, Cristiana, into deeper levels of what types of beings have been incarnated onto the planet that are really evil, you know. So it's everywhere from any of these things can be hijacked and taken over. The virgin parthenogenesis, the Tantra,
Yes.
and they can be infiltrated at any time and misused and twisted into what they shouldn't be.
And
so the first step is to understand that these things are, first of all, real to begin with, that they can happen and be used, because the way these beings have been operating that take advantage is they're like, oh, humans, they don't even believe, they don't even know that there's interdimensionality possible.
That's so true.
They don't even know that there's virgin birth. They don't, you know, aside from that quaint little story in one of their religions that got covered over, you know. So we are all having to come to consciousness about this technology to begin with, and then the proper use of it, and then the improper use of it, whether we're witting conscious actors in it, or unwitting, unconscious, experimented beings. All right. So we're all starting to get very, very conscious. And I've just noticed that since I've started talking about my new book, you know, back in April of 2021, I'm finding more and more people like you who truly understand the reality of these things, how we need to resurrect them and re-empower ourselves and really get conscious and understand them, and how we need to set boundaries around them that have not been set in quite a while.
That's where I wanted to get to, because I know some people are now watching and getting scared, like, oh my God, I can be really hijacked by a being that is not well intended and have my sexual energy or my energy body taken over, and I have no idea what's happening, they're saying. So having given this information that can be a little scary for so many, what do we do about it? So how do
you call on Jesus,
like
you call on Mother Mary. Before you go to bed, you ask them to come in the room and guard you.
Yeah.
You call on the highest archangels of true love, light, and wisdom to guard you. You put golden light around you, and then you go to bed. And if in the middle of the night you wake up and you're feeling spooked, you do the whole thing again. You fill yourself with your I am love, light presence as well. That's another one. And then when you wake up, you fill yourself with your I am love, light presence. You ground yourself into the earth, and you ask these beings to protect you in all aspects of your living, conscious and unconscious life.
Yes.
And then you just start educating yourself. You start educating yourself. Well, what are she talking about? What is this? Is this real? What do I need to know to find out more? Start learning about shamanism. Start learning about altered states of consciousness. Start learning about the astral plane. You know, there's many, many things that you can get hip to, so that you can understand more of what I'm saying, more of what others are saying, and get the information directly yourself. That's what I would say.
Yes, that's fabulous. And we were talking about invoking these beings of light to protect, especially in lovemaking, where the most powerful energy is being shared, and it's so necessary that energy is being guarded and well channeled.
Yes.
And well, that would be a whole other conference to build upon.
Yes.
On how to have actually a conscious intercourse and have a conscious use of your own or intimate energy, and bring the best of it, instead of like spilling it out and misusing it and having other beings be nourished by it that are not so well intended.
Right.
So
that's right. And we have to get really conscious about what our fantasies are.
Yes.
When we are engaging in this level too, because our whole fantasy erotic life has been hijacked through pornography and all of these, dominant things that are going on that ascend these energies into people, connect their erotic responses with violence and other types of things.
Yes.
And this needs to be cleared up. I mean, it really just does. Otherwise, we're going to just keep bringing these negative energies into our lives, into ourselves. Nobody is really fulfilled by any of that. You don't feel good afterward. You should feel illuminated, enlightened, inspired,
energized,
fulfilled,
energized as well, instead of depleted.
not depleted. Yeah, exactly. And so, I know these are harsh things to say, but once we start on this topic, we have to really look at all of it. What are the choices? What are we getting turned on by and why? Who got into our sexual fantasy life? What were the agendas behind that? And how do we release that so that we can have that pure, total pure pleasure space of co-creation with the divine again, when we are in any kind of sexual activity, be it with ourselves or with others.
That's so true. Thanks for sharing. That's what we're sharing in the intimacy classes that we have, in the Tantra classes that we're holding, where we're always referring to the purification of the diet as a starter. And as you said, if you keep consuming animal products, you will keep having animal instincts, no matter what, and animalistic desires instead of higher consciousness desires. And then purification of the emotions, to attract the partner and the love and lovemaking that would be of a highest energy. And then the purification of the mind. What mental state are you in when you start, being with the partner, and what type of thought patterns are you holding when you're lovemaking? Because that attracts, like literally co-creates and magically brings in manifestation. So to be the guardian of your own thoughts would be the key factor when you're either manifesting a soul in a sexual union, or just manifesting whatever it is that you want to bring in. So all this is just basic 101 civilized intimate sharing that I call it the natural way, instead of the Neanderthal of sexual sharing that most humanity is doing.
And for all we know, Cristiana, the Neanderthals may have been closer to the beauty way than we are. It may have been all of the intervening, because I think even the Neanderthals were a purer type of race, but it may be that all of the intervening hybriding and splicing, with reptilian and whatever, have caused a lot of problems. So, but I get your point. I mean, the point is that we want to be at our best. We want to be connecting with our best DNA as humans, our most fulfilling, love-filled DNA, anything that takes us into those states of bliss that are authentic, that are in service to, the positive energies of the universe. That's where we want to be going.
Yes, and we also want to learn, since we're at it, about the misusage of several substances, that people tend to use to heighten their consciousness, which is not really heightening it, but rather hijacking it, the way I say it. And that does not really bring the highest of the highest energy or soul into your union. So that's also something that we want to bring up and touch upon without insisting upon it. And we have a full full reference of it when we refer to advanced civilizations and how they perceive substance usage and why they advise on not doing that, actually. But
yeah, because Cristiana,
yes, go ahead.
What I want to say is, because what you are aiming for is to embody the divine, not be possessed by a being that is masquerading as the divine, no matter how many high powers they have, right? And this is what can happen in these cases of, high throttle medicines or substances or whatever. So yeah, a great care needs to be taken with all of this. We really, I know the impulse is to have that connection, that higher connection with the divine, with your partner. And at the same time, you have to be so careful as to what you're doing, what you're imbibing, and who you're inviting in.
Yes. Who is actually in your bedroom beside your partner? That's interesting.
Is actually in your bedroom, and it would curl people's hair probably half the time to find out.
Yes, 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 absolutely. I mean, the things I have witnessed over years, not necessarily in mine, but in general, is can be a bit scary. So learning to filter out, learning to connect to the highest source, learning to purify your bodies to the level where you can actually embody a higher form of energy, learning to detox your emotions in a way that can bring a higher state of consciousness, and learning to master your thoughts. That would be the basic steps, yes?
Yes, yes, I think so. And then going through whatever other educational processes you want to.
Yes.
You know, taking the Holy Womb Chakra classes, reading my books, taking your courses, you know, understanding more about the interdimensional world through direct psychic trainings and oracle trainings and so forth, which is another thing that I offer. So there are ways that we can open our consciousness in safe, protected ways. And that's what we want to aim for here.
Tell us again, which is the main class that you are offering that teaches this?
Well, I would say the Holy Womb Chakra teachings is the closest to what we're talking about, because it's a way of purifying anything connected with the womb in your body, whatever your gender identification. And it is a way of opening and amplifying that womb power, connecting with the womb power of the goddess herself. I would say that. And, you know, but I have other courses that get people into more open states. My level 1 Priestess of the Dove Oracle training. And then there's, if people want to learn more about Mother Mary, there's the Mother Mary mystery teachings. And every month, on the third Thursday of the month, I have a live experience called the monthly Mother Mary Love and Empowerments Circle, where I take people through an hour and a half of a divine transmission of a meditation to help people in what's needed in the now. It's unique every time.
Yes.
I have people receive some messages themselves, we share, and then we go into what I call cosmic Q&A, where I serve as an oracle, and people bring their global and cosmic questions to bear to see what wants to come through with this oracle that is inspired by Mother Mary. So that is a place where you can have a living, breathing experience of Mother Mary as your mentor and your person to help elevate you in this lifetime at this very critical time on planet Earth, when everything is very intense, because we are going through the transition into the new Earth, those of us who want to take that initiation seriously.
Yes, that sounds amazing. And everyone who wants to get in touch with this knowledge, please go to Margaret's website, which is, please tell us again, seven.
Yes, it's seven sisters mystery school.com, and the 7 is written out SEVEN, 7sistersmysteryschool.com. And right there you'll see the homepage with some of these things listed in the navigation tab, and there's drop downs where you can find all these different courses and more. And I work one-on-one with people to help them in these and many other aspects of their lives. So people can have intuitional sessions with me as well.
That's awesome. So people can go there and look at this website and see where your classes are. And then there's again the one-on-one sessions that you're referring to. So we're so grateful that you're bringing this knowledge into the world and bringing these subjects up with such courage, because so few people are addressing them in a clean and aligned way. You know, there's so much misunderstanding and misusage of information these days that, as you were saying, it makes your hair curl. And then and if you want to go higher in your vibration, guys, there's a pranic process online starting tomorrow of 8 days of purification, upgrade, detox of your body, emotions, and mind, and learning about the pranic reality and how to live and conceive on prana. You know, it starts tomorrow, November 3rd. And then we have the prana, intimacy, and kundalini class exactly as this one ends, We have that class for half a day, or 3 or 4 hours it lasts. So
That also
on starting exactly, I was counting the days, it's starting exactly on November 11. So on 11/11 we have the prana, intimacy, and kundalini class, like right on, to raise the vibration about what sexual sharing means and divine conception means and all that stuff, because that's the next step in the evolution of humanity, knowing to bring other beings consciously on the planet. So you can check out our website, soulhealingacademy.com, at the events sections to see all the things that we play with. I just have to confess, I didn't go through all your work and website and all that, because I prefer to read the field of a person, and I know the authenticity and the connections that there are. And I was feeling as the strongest the vibration of Isis and Mother Mary, without even knowing that you're actually having a class on that. Mother Mary energy, but she's been one of my main favorite feminine energies that I've been working with, and I love that you're on the same track with all this sharing, and it's so good to be sisters in that. My phone just jumped off the table, like no, I mean, technology does crazy things.
It does. We've had a lot of activity around this one, haven't we?
I love the way it plays. Would you be in a hurry, or would you take 1 or 2 questions from the audience? What do you?
Yeah, let's take 1 or 2 questions. We can sure do that.
So people who want to make questions, please use the comments area. If you're on the summits page, it's next to the video on your laptop, or below the video if you're on iPhone, smartphone, whatever you're using. If you're on YouTube, it's to the right of your screen. And if you're on the other channels, you know where the comments are. Please shoot some questions for Margaret. I keep calling you Mary because that's your main frequency, I don't have a problem remembering your name.
It's happened before. It's happened before. My middle name, my confirmation name is Mary.
That's
so I really do take Mary as a name.
Okay, so perfect.
It's a priestess title. It's a priestess title that means divine love from the ancient Egyptian.
Oh, great. I kept saying Mary to you, and I was becoming, a bit embarrassed, but then I always read what the core name of the people are, even if they have another like official name. My mind always tells me the name that is the highest of frequency that they have. So what else would you like, until people post questions, if they have any, what else would you like to share that you feel is important for this moment now? Maybe as a completion, or anything that you would like to add?
Well, I think that we have definitely stirred the field, and these things are important for all of us to really start opening up the doors to, looking at, talking about. There are many things we've talked about that are controversial, that are exciting for many people, maybe scary for others. And we have to be willing to go into these territories, knowing that we can find our guides, we can find our helpers, and we can use this as an educational period for ourselves, to open ourselves to greater and greater levels of consciousness, understanding that this is what's happening on planet Earth right now. We are moving, we are evolving, we are shifting into a new age, a new era, a new epoch, a new Earth. And all of what we have been talking about, all of what you're teaching, what I'm teaching, what others are teaching, is part of this transformation. And these seem like esoteric subjects that maybe don't have to do with very much, but as we have been going into it today, once you start diving in, you realize, wow, this is very, very relevant. In fact, these are precisely the things that we need to lift the veil on. So that's what I would say. Like, let's just keep co-experiencing, co-receiving, co-creating, and sharing what we're getting in all of these domains, so that we can reconstruct this knowledge. That's what I would say. We are in a reconstruction period. We are receiving everything that has been hidden and lost. And this is a communal process.
Wow, that has been so deep that I feel to add nothing more.
All right.
Yes, it came from a very high level of informing. So yeah, that's pretty much it.
All right, good. Well, Cristiana, I'm so glad to be here, and I know and trust that this video will go to whoever will benefit from it, and may it be used to assist all of those who watch and listen. Okay.
Yes, fabulous. I have a final question that just came in, and I feel it's really important, because especially because it comes from a man. And as I said, we love men very much. We really honor their presence on earth. We don't want to discard them as not being necessary here for conception. So this conscious man, Rory Clark, is asking very beautifully, semen retention and celibacy is growing topic discussed among men, important for many reasons. I practiced it for months, and at the time I found to be very good for manifesting the things that I need in my life. Is celibacy important for a woman in a similar way, or is it different? It's a great question.
Yes, it's a very great question. And
should I repeat it?
No, it's okay. Well, I mean, first of all, there's semen retention, meaning that you never have orgasms at all, or there is circular orgasms where you can receive it into your own body. That's a very revitalizing technique for men that I highly encourage. And in terms of celibacy for women, I think that, first of all, there are periods of a life where it's helpful to be celibate for various reasons. You may want to be purifying. You may want to be just, putting the skids on and evaluating your life and doing some healing. Some women do it on a regular basis or as a part of their whole entire life, because they understand that for their own spiritual vitality, they need to be celibate. Other women feel that for their spiritual vitality, they need to be partnered. And then again, it's different times of your life. The celibacy practice was necessary for those who wanted to conceive divinely. So in a sense, it was a lifestyle for many of the years that a woman was practicing that, in many cases, all the way up into her elder years, as we know, with Anne, Mary's mother, Elizabeth, the mother of John the Baptist, Sarah, the mother of Isaac in the Bible, etc. So it really depends on the woman. It depends on the situation. It depends on the reason for the celibacy. Either you can be in periods of celibacy as well. So that's what I would say about that. And thank you for the question.
That's an awesome question. I love it too. I love your answer as well. I would say that from my own experience, celibacy has been very useful, as it served for spiritual evolution and purification, as you have shared. The practice of brahmacharya, which means recirculating your own sexual energy, either on yourself, with yourself, by yourself in celibate practice, or with a partner, is essential for evolution, is essential for upgrade. Spilling your energy out cannot be useful in any way, shape, or form for any woman or man ever. We don't encourage at all semen spilling at all, which is a very controversial topic in itself, but that's what I'm about. And the higher you go with this practice, not necessarily in a celibate way, but also in couple, the higher you go with circulating your energy, and not spitting it out, but inwardly upgrading it and circulating it, the more your consciousness can access vaster level of awareness. And that's crucial. I mean, I would say you can't do without, and it's not far-fetched. So if being celibate helps you to get there. Maybe you could practice for a while on your own and then be with a partner when you master it. For me, that's been important, that's been useful, and that's what we recommend.
Wow, beautiful. It seems like you have an amazing body of knowledge to share with people. Wonderful.
Thank you so much for yours, and you have brought so much beautiful information in a such courageous way. What comes is like, we thank you for your courage. You know, rather than anything else, we thank you for your wisdom and courage. Thank you for bringing and keeping this information into the world. And I would love to know, and we would love to share anytime you bring in a new book or anything on this topic, then just please let us know, and we'll just share it forward, because you're one of the few on the planet that are approaching it, and it's best to have as many as possible now. Thank you so
Yes,
much.
we need it. You're welcome. Thank you, Cristiana. I really appreciate it. Much love to everyone.
Much love, and see you soon whenever that is. Hope to have you in one of our events in person at some point.
Very good.
Very grateful for your presence. And thank you everyone for watching. And if you want to watch this whole summit, there's a link to it on our website, soulhealingacademy.com. You'll find it in the upper bar, the Pranic Consciousness Summit. More than 40 interviews with fabulous people like Margaret that are researching and teaching in pranic nourishment, the right usage of energy, and uplifting, upgrading topics such like the one of tonight. Thank you for being here. Thank you for watching, and see you soon. Much love to all.